All right, I think that's good.
Okay, so what about the next whole chunk of your question? You like asked this enormous question.
I
Yeah,
did.
it was enormous. So it was like what it's like to be me, and then you moved into the stuff around how people view like the guide. And
Yes.
so what do you want me to answer? Restate that part of it, and then we can just do that chunk of it.
I don't even know if it needed an answer because you actually said about the sacrifice. I mean, if you wanted to get into it more, I don't know if we necessarily need to. I just feel that people need to be aware that in doing what you're doing, that it is a tremendous amount of sacrifice. And that, I mean, I feel like people look at like Deepak Chopra and, he's comfortable.
Sure.
He's
Sure.
got lots of people doing stuff for him, and he's making money, he's profiting, and a lot of people feel like spiritual guides and whoever that may be for them should do it for free, and I just thought it was great that you put that in there, that it is a sacrifice as far as time, money, energy, and family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge, that people need to understand, like, yes, I do this for you. I love you, and you are God, but there are sacrifices. And I feel like, even without all of that, the work that you do with people is, as we say, it's priceless. But when you factor in what your life is like, because we're here till we're not, so you're still dealing with life, when you factor in how it's the effects that it has on your life, that's even more like, holy crap, like, this is what this woman does to be able to work with me.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's nothing that from my vantage point, it's fine. Right? It's fine.
Yeah.
Because it's just part of the walk. So that's fine. And anyone who works at the level I work at would say the same thing. I mean, it's fine. But from your vantage point, I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate that you can recognize, and I speak this personally as well, because this is exactly how I viewed my guide, and would speak up for her with others who didn't seem to get it. It wasn't that anyone had to tell me; she sure never did. Said a word to me about what her experience was. But at a certain point, because of my own journey, I started to see what was really going on, and what she was doing energetically, and the amount of toll that it would take on her physically, and the amount of toll it would take on her time, and just all of this stuff. And of course, you can't go through that and then not have greater respect for and reverence even for the person that is being so giving for you. It was nothing that she was asking in return. It was the fact that she was there to give. And that's the calling. The calling is to give. And I've always said, it's never been about obviously, it's never been about money for me at all, at all. And for most in my position, it's not. And for most in my position, there's a struggle with finances because we just don't live in that world. Now, it would be beautiful if we lived in a world where, in the East, it's a little different in that, you'll have sages and gurus and stuff who have really given up the world, and they will they will have baskets out, and people in the East have an understanding that those who have chosen the spiritual life deserve respect and they deserve assistance. Right? They have chosen to leave the world, and the higher pursuit is God. And in the East, God is seen as the higher pursuit, not the material world, God. So people give willingly and often of themselves to do that. In the West, it's very different. And I think that's what you were pointing to. You know, it's like we take such advantage of our priests and our ministers in our culture. I mean, it's really ridiculous. They have just a very basic salary that they live on. And then we expect so much of them. And what we don't see, because if you get up and you go to work and you work in an office, say you do bookkeeping or something, there's a level of energy that it takes to do your work, right? And that's fine. What you don't see is that for someone who's facilitating others from the space of the heart, that a priest, a rabbi, a reverend, that they do, what you can't see is the energetic toll that takes on a person. And it's the work is just amplified when someone has placed themselves in service to others. And we expect so much of these people that they're meant to, show up when we have relatives who are sick, show up at someone's deathbed, to be there for this and to be there for that. And, and all the time we say, well, I give to my church, and maybe I give, my $2 a week or $5 a week. And that is supposed to be enough. And what we don't see is, wow, this person has answered a heart calling, and from that space has given over his or her life to God and in service to humanity. And we treat them, like, well, you should just do it. And, too bad for the fact that the way that we live in the West is different, and you just have to deal with it. And it's really sad, the way I see it is just, it puts an awful lot of strain unnecessarily on this person who is trying to be of service. And now what you're doing is you're throwing on more and more stress for them and how they can just make it work in the world. And it takes away then from the energy that they have available to give in service. You see? We put them in a very difficult position. Now, of course, anyone in that position has chosen that position for themselves, and they're not all feeling sorry for themselves, and that's not what I'm trying to get to. But I think just having that level of awareness that there will come a point, if everything, let's think of it this way, if everything on the planet, like, just completely went to hell in a handbasket, the financial systems collapsed, and like the atmosphere is caving in, and we can't drink the water, what are people going to do, right? They're either going to completely freak out, panic, and maybe, kill themselves, or who do they turn to? They turn to God, right? There's this thing in them that comes up, and they're going, help. And who is it that they're looking for assistance? It would be people like me, and it would be the rabbis and the ministers and the priests, right? So when it all comes down to it, the people who have walked a path and who have wisdom and experience and understanding that the majority don't, we do hold them in this place of esteem. But the 99.9% of the time, we don't really want to admit that, right? And I think as a collective, it's just necessary that at some point we really get straight about that. There's nothing wrong with paying doctors a lot of money and lawyers a lot of money. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But we need to start being very realistic about those people who are in service. And it's not just people in a spiritual religious, practice, teachers and nurses. I mean, it's the same thing. They are there to serve humanity, right? And they're the ones who give the most of themselves, and who oftentimes kind of receive the least. And we need, consciousness needs to shift there. We really need to see that for what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to take this time to do a shameless plug
Oh.
the Kumara Center, and let everybody know that we are donation run, and that you are, we would be very grateful if everybody would donate. Should we give them the PayPal link?
You sure could, I guess.
or you can go onto the website. You can go to the website is kumaracenter.org, and you can click on the donation link there. You can always go to PayPal, find the Kumara Center. What is it? The email is donations@kumaracenter.org, and you can donate there. But we are volunteer run and rely solely on donations. So if you can donate, we would be very grateful. So.
Always.
Okay.